Chelsea. It's a real pleasure to
Hey.
have you. And thank you so much for participating in the Global Groomer Health Conference. So today, I'm going to ask you a few questions so we get to know a little bit more about you and about what you're going to talk about during the conference. So first of all, could you briefly introduce yourself to our international grooming audience?
Chelsea Ward. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach. So that's an NBC HWC in America. And the overseeing organization is now branching out into more international and other countries for certification. Um, I- she wants to say hi. I
Hi.
worked in the animal industry for over a decade. I started in dog daycare and then I was a veterinary assistant and then I moved into bathing and eventually grooming. I went to grooming school in 2018 at Rio Grooming in the US, and I now currently work for Dogliness as a project manager. I'm also a registered yoga teacher. I have my RYT 200. And I also have birth and postpartum doula certificates as well. As far as dogs, I really, really love hand stripping, and terriers are a passion for me. And then I show and breed Brussels Griffons. So I am a American Brussels Griffon Association member. And so the ABGA is the parent club for Griffs in the US. And I guess I've also competed in some grooming competitions, both in the US and in Canada.
That's great. Well, that's a full plate, isn't it? So many things. Yes, yes. I don't know if I can say that in English, but that's that's a full plate. So this is what I like about you is that just like as other speakers that we have is that you have health experience on one part and expertise, and on the other part you have a very strong foothold in the grooming industry, and you know our struggles, you know what's going on when we close the salon doors, you know. So why is groomer health such an important topic for you?
So groomer health is important to me because it's very near and dear to my own passion, right? I am interested in health. That's what my background is in. And I also love the animal industry. I really started university with the intention of eventually going to vet school. And as I got into that industry more, I really began to understand the mental health toll that a lot of professional veterinarians deal with. And so for me and my own health, I knew that that would likely not be a super sustainable career for me in the long run. And so I needed to step away from that. And then when I had my first pregnancy, I was in all of my upper levels at university towards my veterinary dream. And I took my registered yoga teacher training, and I entered the world of like integrative and holistic health. And it totally changed my perspective on everything. And after I went back to university, I changed my major and I dove headfirst into this. And then in my last semester of university, that's when I went to grooming school, actually. So I was in both university and grooming school at the same time. And our teacher really emphasized that there's a long term career problem in the industry and that most groomers will step away before 20 years. And this is because they get burnt out and their body starts to break down. So she really, really emphasized the importance of taking care of your body. And she spent a good amount of time teaching us about ergonomics. You know, how do you correctly hold scissors? Where should the dog and the table be in relation to your body? Because the more you do things just however you want, the more likely you are to do something that can cause more strain on your body long term. And so going into the industry, knowing that I needed to be careful about how to approach things, and then also my background in holistic and integrative health, where a lot of the focus in integrative health is prevention. So in the US, once you reach the near and dear age of 30, 6 in 10 people have at least one chronic condition. And then 4 in 10 people have two or more chronic conditions.
Oh my God.
And there is no cure for chronic conditions.
No, there
There is
isn't.
only prevention. So, a lot of the holistic focus is things that you can either do to help prevent chronic conditions from setting in, or things that you can do for symptom mitigation once you have a chronic condition. So, knowing that is my background, I was like, okay, I really need to like focus on how to make sure I can make this a sustainable career for me. Um, because I went to the grooming school while in university because I love dogs. And I wanted to get really good at learning how to groom dogs. And I always wanted to learn how to show my own dogs. And so I was not someone who was born into being a junior and had people who knew the dog world before me. And so I also know that all of my dog show friends are in their 70s. And a good portion of them do have things where they're like, oh, this hurts, this hurts. But there are a few who are at it and going good and going strong, and they do have different habits, and they do try to take care of themselves and try to stay active. And so I want to be one of them. I want to be in my 70s and feeling great and able to run around the ring. And so yeah, that's why it's important to me.
Well, that was a great answer, and actually, everything you said was wonderful. But I think the main thing I retain is that your teacher in school taught you about prevention and to preserve your body, and I think this is a very important part because you've been taught from the start that your body mattered and that you had to take care of it. Okay, you love dogs, but still you have to take care of yourself first if you want to go on with taking care of dogs. So, and I think it's an important point that if all groomers received, because school like yours, educating on body and health and ergonomics, there are not many of them, not many at all. So this is amazing. I mean, we shouldn't even say that because it should be normal, but it's amazing that you come from a school that from the start like planted this seed in you that okay, you have to take care of your body, and today you're where you are and you still have this in your mind and you still take care of yourself. So I think this is something very important, and this is something we want to do with the International Grooming Society. We want to implement health. Well, taking care of your health has something fundamental that has to be done from the start, so from the schools. So this is amazing that you put it on the table, because this is one of the major objectives we have all together, you, me, the IGS. So yes, and so you are the speaker, you're the only speaker in our convention that is gonna have two sessions. So yes, so the first one will be, it's called The Groomer's Guide to Resilient Back. So because you chose your topic, so why did you choose this specific topic first?
So I chose back pain because it is so common. I know a number of groomers with back pain. My husband dealt with a lower back injury at one point in his life. So back pain is very common across almost all different populations. And I believe in your health survey, it was one of the most common problems that had come up.
It was.
And so even even I will sometimes have back pain. I know that it's acute and that I need to respect my boundaries, especially when hand stripping, to make sure that it doesn't turn into something bigger. When my husband injured his back, it took about 2 years of rehabbing it and having different exercises and utilizing different modalities and really reteaching his body the proper body motion mechanics. Um, and for a long time, it was disabling for his life activities. And it was right after we had our first kid. So he was like unable to help walk dogs. He couldn't really hold baby for very long. So it majorly disrupted our lifestyle. However, now he is very active. I would say it is 90% healed. He can squat over 100 kilos. But as everything, recurrent problems can happen, and sometimes he sneezes wrong and the body motion mechanic with the sneeze goes wrong, and he's
Oh
out for
God.
a day. um so it was definitely a journey, because, like most American methods of addressing things, the very first thing that they did was medication.
Yeah.
But medication only gets you so far, and it didn't teach him how to use his body correctly. And so he also did a lot of work with physical therapy and different modalities for helping like reduce inflammation more naturally. And so it was a really big learning journey for me to see all the different ways that you can address back pain, and what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. But there's such a variety, and not everyone is aware that you can approach back pain in so many different ways. They're really only given one version of this is how you deal with it. And if you don't like this, then we can do surgery.
Yeah.
However, the long-term outcomes of surgery isn't 100% healed either. And so the Groomer's Guide to Resilient Back Pain is really going to be a guidebook class of these are different things that you can consider and look at. And these are the different practitioners that you could go see and explore and see if that's going to be the right modality for you. Um, and yeah, and we'll deep dive into what these different practitioners do, how their method works, what the basis of the science behind their method. I'm since my degree is all university based, it's all peer review cited journals and empirical studies. So I'll have citations lists for everything I'm talking about. Um, and so, yeah, so I'm not a medical professional, but I know a lot about what these different professionals do, and I can give you a background on that, because then every approach is always going to be individual, and what you're comfortable with will also be individual. So there is the biggest thing I love to say is that there's no one size fits all answer.
Yeah.
Um, and who you want to work with is an individual and unique choice as well. So we're going to be looking into all the different ways that you can look into
That's
for
great.
healing your back.
Well, I totally trust you on that anyway. So, but I think the thing, among all the things you just said, I think there is one thing that I want to repeat. Is that, when you talked about your husband and the fact that it took a lot of time, and it was a long journey for him to recover, but he's like 90% recovered. And I think a lot of people in their mind, when they have back issues, they think it's forever. Most of people think once your back is screwed, it's screwed, which is a wrong vision of the problem. And as you said, a lot of physicians will say, oh, well, surgery, surgery, surgery. And then we all know how it's going to end. You're going to have surgery. If it works, it's going to be okay for a few months, years, if you're lucky. And then you go back to square one. So I think it's very good that people understand that you're not screwed. If you have back issues, you can go back to like 90%, for example, like your husband or more, but there is a solution, different solutions, but there is a solution. So I think it's important for people to understand that they are not wasted. It's not because your back is ruined for the moment or you're just a little bit injured, whatever level you are at. There is hope and there is solution. So this is fantastic. Well, then you have a second. Sorry, go on.
I say that my husband is 90% recovered. That's because once you injure the body, you're never back to 100%.
That's true.
Your body, the way it works and the way it heals, once you injure it, you always have a higher propensity to possibly re-injuring that same part of the body. And so in terms of looking at his physicality and activity, he's actually stronger than what he's ever been before. He feels better than what he's ever been before. So now it's been 10 years since the original injury, and he feels healthier and stronger. But there are the days where it does act up and it does hurt, and he has to be careful about what he does. And so that's why it's 90%. But if you look at the day to day, he's definitely 100%, 9 out of 10 days. And then maybe on that 10th day, he's at 60 or 70%. So that's pretty good.
That's
I think, especially for something where he couldn't do normal life activities. And so, in terms of people looking at back pain as a forever problem, it would be something that you need to be aware of and be careful of your whole life. But is it going to be disabling for you the rest of your life? It doesn't need to be. There's lots of things that you can do, and there's lots of ways to get stronger, because a lot of the bad back pain is because our back is really not supposed to be a load bearing, like the back does not is not the originator of strength for what holds up your body. um a lot of it needs to be your core and then your glutes, and so the core and the glutes are the powerhouse, but when we rely on the back, then we're throwing our body motion mechanic out. And so relearning how to properly move is important. And a lot of that is due to posture. Because if you look at little kids or look at babies or toddlers, they have perfect body motor mechanics. And the innate ability to use the body is there for everybody. And then it is lifestyle habits that alter these.
That's so true. That's true. When you look at babies, they're always like, when they start like walking properly, they are all straight with the back, well postured. So yes, definitely true. So you have another session, and the title is Sustainable Grooming, Caring for Yourself While Caring for Dogs. So a totally different topic. What can groomers expect from this session?
So sustainable grooming is all about self-care. And self-care is so trendy and so Insta-worthy with face masks and spa days and shopping sprees. And that is not the self-care that we will be talking about, unfortunately. Lots of self-care is making sure we stop to eat and making sure we shower when we need to, making sure that we sleep the amount of hours that our body needs to sleep. And going back to the individuality, what every person needs is going to be different. I don't have the magic number of hours that you need to sleep to feel good. I know what I need, but everyone else is also the expert of what they need. But we also, in the grooming industry, especially when we work on commission, we tend to forego any breaks or anything that might detract from our day. And sometimes we look at it in a financial perspective, oh, it's like I'm making less money now for and doing more hours for the same amount of work, or sometimes it's a commitment to the dogs. And I don't want this dog to have to be here longer. I don't want to have to do this. Now they have to wait for me. And so there can be lots of reasons why someone chooses to skip the self care. But we're looking at the different self care options and how to make it easier. Because we also tend to have habits of making it harder to include these things. But
Yes.
when you prepare and intentionally make time for them, then it becomes easier to do and it becomes easier to include in your life because you've scheduled it in. And
Yeah.
so we're going to be looking at the different self care options of what's sustainable for you. And yeah, so again, I'm not the expert of you. You will be, all of the groomers will be the experts of themselves. Nobody knows themselves better than themselves. And there is no magic one size. This is the self care that works for everybody. You will feel 100% if you do exactly what I say.
Mhm.
But I can present you with a lot of options and a lot of things to explore. And I think the one thing that I would recommend to everybody is mindfulness. And that's really just checking in with yourself. And that's kind
Yes.
of the first start in learning what you need to do to self-care for
Yeah,
yourself.
just like ask yourself, like an introspection of yourself, and just ask your inner self what it needs. But I think like self-care, and I'm talking about them during the working hours. I think groomers are the worst at that. They're the worst, because no lunch break, there's no time, the other dog is coming in, I don't want to waste any time, I don't, and then the phone is ringing, and I don't want to lose the customer, I don't want to lose the money, and then a lot of groomers that I know, they can work like until 9, 10 p.m. because they didn't dare to say no. And they think like, oh yes, I'm going to take in, because if I say no once, maybe they won't come back, maybe. So we are very, very bad at self-caring when we are in the work hours. So yeah, that's going to be a very, very interesting session, I think, for everybody. And so on a more practical aspect, so can you tell me one small habit groomers could start changing today to better protect their health?
So okay, so I already said mindfulness I would recommend for everybody, and I would come back to that. And just taking a minute a day, even to check in with yourself, because I think a lot of people will go many weeks even without their life without taking a moment to check in and just starting with the basics. It doesn't need to be an intense introspection of your whole self. It can be as simple as taking 2 minutes, 1 minute out of the day and being, am I hungry right now? Most people don't realize if they're hungry or if they're full or where they are.
Well, that's not my
It's
case.
not something we do. So am I hungry? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Did I get enough sleep? How am I feeling there? What hurts in my body today or what feels good? And we don't take time to think about this. We wait until
Yes.
it's all an emergency. We wait until we're starving to eat. We wait until we absolutely cannot wait any longer to go to the
That's what I was about
bathroom.
to say. This is something we have to do before we feel bad. So this is something we have to do like regularly before we realize, because by the time we realize something is wrong, it's been wrong for a long time, actually.
Yes. Yes.
Talking by experience. So, what message would you like groomers to take away from your talks?
I would really like them to know that they can trust themselves, that they are always going to be the expert of themselves, and I can give them ideas and inspirations and hopefully make them curious about learning more and exploring more ideas and what they can do. But they will always know themselves best. And if I say something and okay, that's definitely not going to be what's right for me, trust yourself. Then you know that that option is not the one that's right for you. But then get curious and what would accomplish the same idea, the same task, but in a way that feels more authentic to you and aligns with your values of what does feel good for you.
That's cool. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. And also, just one last thing. Um, how important do you think this conference is for groomers?
I think it's super important because I don't know a single groomer who has not either dealt with a mental issue, so like burnout, stress, anxiety, boundary issues, or a physical issue. So everybody has some sort of health concern in the industry, it feels like. I know nobody who is just like, I've been here 10 years and I'm perfect. I've never run into any problems.
Me neither.
So I think it's super applicable and it's something that's going to give the career a lot more longevity. If you really look at the statistics of how, like, okay, so in Europe, it's a little bit different because you don't have these corporate grooming schools and trainings that churn out a ton of groomers, a ton of groomers. But most of those groomers aren't there in 20 years. And you can see this in some of the other career fields, like veterinary technicians, they tend to burn out really fast too. And having that experienced, knowledgeable, advanced groomer want to stay in the career is really important because those are the people that you'll learn the best from. Those are the people that can really help with a lot of the dogs that need this extra level of care. Dogs that are special cases, you don't want to hand to a brand new groomer who has no experience in the industry.
Exactly.
You you want this advanced, knowledgeable, expert groomer, and right at the moment, those are very hard to find. They're few and far between. And the continuing education is starting to grow, and there's knowledge about this starting to grow. And people are choosing the people who leave the grooming industry typically don't want to leave. They leave because they feel like they have to.
Yeah.
Because grooming financially is a pretty stable job. In terms of lots of careers, it's pretty decent, and people like that aspect of the career a lot of the times, and so they feel reluctant to leave. And if they want to stay, there's things we can help teach people so that they can stay, that they don't have to leave until they want to leave.
That's our goal.
um,
Yes, that's our goal. And I got a few examples of, you know, people taking my course just about like, you know, dermatology. And then when you apply physiology to the dog, he moves less around and everything. And I had some people calling me back and say, "Oh, thank you so much because I was thinking about quitting, but now I know I can go on till I retire." So this is what I want for every groomer. I want that for everybody because this is so important. We take care of the dogs, but we need to take care of ourselves as well. And almost nobody teaches it. Almost nobody talks about it. A little bit more now than the IGS stepped in, so there is more and more awareness about it. But I want it to spread all over. And I want people to start with, okay, I'm starting grooming and I'm starting on the right foot, taking care of the dogs, but making sure I'm good as well, I'm well taken care of. So, well, Chelsea, thank you very much for joining us today and answering the question. It was lovely and passionate, as usual. You are always so passionate and witty. I love it. So thank you very much. And well, we'll see you at the conference.
Oh, thank you for having me, Natalie. I'm super excited to teach. I'm trying to really parse down my slides because I know I'll spend 3 to 5 minutes on each slide. And so I'm like, okay, I really need to make sure I'm not going over and it's not too much information for everybody. Because yes, especially once I get into these are my citations. It can get
I know
long.
how it is. I'm the same, but I know you know me. So yes, but I'm sure it's going to be perfect. It's going to be fantastic, and people will
Oh,
learn a lot from you. So thank you very much. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.